The Alpha King did not send Maren Vale to the dungeon. Dungeons were for enemies. He sent her to the kennel. That was how the court of Veyr told her what she was. Not a traitor worthy of trial. Not a servant worthy of being questioned. Not even a woman whose word deserved to stand before the throne. A thing accused of harming wolves belonged with wolves. 2 guards dragged her across the eastern courtyard at dusk, past frozen fountains and noblewomen wrapped in white fur. No bell rang for judgment. No priest asked for truth. No witness stepped forward. The royal pups were sick. That was enough. Maren's bare feet slipped on the ice-slick stone. Her gray servant dress was torn at one shoulder, and her cheek still burned where royal healer Orvin had struck her for reaching toward the smallest pup after it collapsed in the nursery. "Do not touch royal blood with Omega hands," he had said. But the pup had stopped breathing. Maren had reached before she remembered what she was. That had always been her danger. Compassion looked noble on women with rank. On an abandoned Omega, it looked like ambition. The Silver Kennel waited beneath the northern wall of the palace, half buried in frost and moonlight. It was older than the current throne, built from black stone and true silver bars. Wolves who lost control were locked there until their minds returned. Royal beasts were whelped there when moon signs turned strange. Traitors with wolf blood were sometimes thrown inside to learn whether their beasts wanted to live more than their human bodies did. Maren had scrubbed its floors for years. She had carried meat to royal litters, washed fever blankets, cleaned blood from stone, and held dying pups when noble handlers grew too afraid of blame. But she had never been locked inside. Until tonight, the guards shoved her through the silver gate. She hit the stone hard, catching herself on both palms. Cold shot through her bones. The gate slammed behind her, and every pup in the kennel whimpered. There were 7 of them. Royal wolf pups. Not fully human, not fully beast. Children of old alpha blood who shifted too early because power had no patience for childhood. They lay in separate straw nests beneath moon-silver lamps, their small bodies trembling, fur damp with fever. 1 black as midnight, 1 silver-gray, 2 white, 1 ash-brown, 1 dark red, and the smallest, pale gold, with ears too large for its narrow head. Their eyes glowed wrong, blue-white at the edges, black in the center. Maren's stomach tightened. This was not ordinary sickness. She had seen moon ash fever once, years ago, in the lower kennels when border pups were brought in after a raid. The noble healers had called it bad blood. Maren had sat with them anyway, humming old Omega lullabies she did not remember learning. 3 had lived. The court never knew. Low-born miracles were safest when mistaken for luck. A woman's voice drifted beyond the bars. How tragic. Maren looked up. Lady Celestine Arlo stood outside the kennel gate in a gown the color of fresh snow. Pale hair, moonstone pins, perfect face. Beautiful in the way. Polished knives were beautiful. Beside her stood royal healer Orvin, thin and gray-robed, hands folded inside his sleeves. Maren rose slowly. "Milady." Celestine looked past her to the pups. 7 royal children sick in 1 week. 7 times you were seen near them. Such devotion. "I cleaned their bedding," Maren said. "The handlers asked me to, because Omegas are useful with filth." Celestine's smile stayed soft. "That does not mean they should be trusted with bloodlines." Maren looked at healer Orvin. "You know this is moon ash fever." His eyes sharpened. Celestine laughed quietly. "A kennel maid diagnosing royal disease. I have seen it before, among gutter litters perhaps. The sickness does not care about titles." The words left before caution could stop them. Celestine's smile thinned. "That is exactly the sort of thinking that gets Omegas locked in kennels." A growl rolled across the courtyard. The guards stiffened. Maren felt him before she saw him. Alpha King Darius Veyr entered the kennel yard without ceremony, and the winter air seemed to bend around him. He wore black battle leathers beneath a dark wolf fur cloak, a thin silver circlet cut through his wind-torn black hair. His face was severe, sleepless, and carved by grief. His eyes were gray, not cold, empty, as if something inside him had been howling too long and had finally torn its own throat. The guards bowed. Celestine lowered herself gracefully. "My king." Darius did not look at her first. He looked at the pups. The smallest gold pup lifted its head and cried. The sound struck him like a blade. His hand flexed at his side, fingers briefly clawing before he forced them human again. Maren saw. So did Celestine. My king, Celestine said softly. You should not come too close. Healer Orvin believes the infection may spread through touch. Darius Veyr moved to Maren. For the first time in her life, the Alpha King truly saw her, not as a gray dress in a corridor, not as a servant carrying bowls, as the accused Omega standing among his dying bloodline. You were found with them, he said. His voice was low. No shouting. No mercy. Yes. You touched them. Yes. After being told not to, Maren swallowed. The smallest one stopped breathing. Something flickered in his face. Pain. Buried quickly. And you thought your hands were cleaner than my healers? No, she said. I thought they were closer. The silence turned dangerous. Celestine's eyes narrowed. Darius stepped closer to the bars. Silver light crossed his face in cold lines. You speak boldly for someone in a kennel. Maren lowered her eyes, then forced them back up. I speak because they cannot. The black pup tried to crawl toward her and collapsed halfway, panting. Maren moved on instinct. The silver collar around her throat snapped tight. Pain flashed under her jaw. She froze. Celestine watched with calm satisfaction. An Omega restraint, she said. For everyone's safety. Darius looked at the collar. Something dark crossed his expression, but he did not order it removed. Maren noticed. That hurt more than the silver. Of course he would not protect her. To him, she was a possible poisoner kneeling among his dying children. Darius turned to Orvin. If she infected them, why lock her with them? The healer bowed. To draw out confession, my king. Guilt weakens when forced to face consequence. So that was her punishment. Watch them break. Confess to a crime she had not committed. The gold pup cried again. Maren looked down. Its tiny body trembled beneath a blanket embroidered with the royal crest. Moon ash fever crawled through its veins. She could smell it now beneath straw and silver. Bitter, burned, like cold ashes soaked in milk. But underneath that was something else. A thread of blue-white light. Familiar. Not from memory. From blood. The gold pup lifted its head. Its moonlit eyes found Maren. Then, with strength it should not have had, it began to crawl toward her. Celestine went still. Orvin whispered, Impossible. One by one, the other pups stirred. The black one dragged itself from its nest. Then the silver gray. Then the white pups. Then the ash brown. Then the dark red. All 7 sick royal pups crawled across the kennel floor toward the abandoned Omega accused of poisoning them. Maren did not move. She could not. The pups gathered at her feet, trembling, pressing their fevered bodies against the hem of her torn gray dress. The smallest gold pup placed its head on her bare foot. Blue-white moonfire lit beneath its fur. The fire spread, not burning, glowing. One by one, every royal pup began to shine with forbidden moonfire. The silver collar around Maren's throat cracked. Darius stared through the bars, all color gone from his face. His wolf finally sounded. A broken, thunderous growl rose from the Alpha King's chest, shaking frost from the kennel roof. Celestine stepped backward. Maren looked down at the glowing pups. They were not afraid of her. They had chosen her. And in the cold silence of the Silver Kennel, the smallest pup opened its moonlit eyes and whispered in a child's voice, Mother. The smallest royal pup called Maren mother. The word did not sound loud. It did not need to. It passed through the Silver Kennel like a blade through silk, cutting every excuse the court had prepared. The guards froze outside the bars. Royal healer Orvin went white. Lady Celestine Arlo stopped breathing for half a second before she remembered how to look innocent. Alpha King Darius Veyr did not move at all. His gray eyes stayed fixed on the 7 glowing pups gathered at Maren's feet. Blue-white moonfire moved beneath their fevered fur, soft as breath, bright as forbidden prayer. The smallest gold pup pressed closer to her bare ankle, trembling, but no longer crying. Maren stared down at it. Mother. No one had ever called her that. No one had called her daughter either. She had been left at the palace gates as a child, with no family token, no pack thread, no birth witness, nothing but a torn blanket and a fever mark on her wrist. The servants had named her Vale because abandoned children needed something for the kitchen ledgers. The court had named her Omega because it was easier than asking where she came from. But this little royal pup had looked at her through sickness and moonfire and named her something no one had dared give her. Maren's throat tightened. "I did not do this," she whispered. Darius finally looked at her face. "Not the collar. Not the accusation. Here. Then why do they crawl to you?" "I do not know." Celestine recovered quickly. "My king," she said, soft and careful. Fevered pups reach for warmth. Omega blood runs low and submissive. It may feel comforting to them. The gold pup growled. It was tiny. Weak. Still, the sound made Celestine step back. Darius noticed. So did Maren. Orvin moved toward the bars, his healer's eyes fixed on the blue-white glow. That fire should not be there. Maren looked at him. "No," she said. "The black fever should not be there." His gaze snapped to her. "What did you say?" She swallowed, forcing her fear down. "The glow is fighting the sickness. The black in their eyes is the disease. The moonfire is not hurting them." Orvin's face hardened. A kennel maid does not instruct royal healers. A royal healer should know when pups are dying. The words struck the yard hard. One guard looked away. Darius's attention sharpened. Celestine's smile vanished for one breath. Then she stepped closer to the Alpha King, her white gown glimmering like snow under moonlight. "My king, grief makes servants bold. This Omega has already shown dangerous attachment to the pups. Perhaps she believes herself chosen because sick animals leaned against her." Maren looked at the pups. "They are not animals." Silence. Celestine turned slowly. Maren realized too late what she had said. In Veyr, royal pups were sacred blood, but still they were spoken of as future alphas, heirs, power, bloodline. Very few called them children when they were shifted. Too much tenderness made court politics uncomfortable. Darius stared at her. "What are they then?" Maren lifted her chin despite the silver collar cutting into her throat. "Afraid." The black pup whined and placed one paw on her torn dress. Something changed in Darius's face. A crack. Small and dangerous. Then Orvin stepped in. "My king, we must remove the pups from her influence." The moment he reached for the kennel latch, all 7 pups snarled. The moonfire brightened. The silver bars rang. Orvin jerked back as if burned. Maren felt the fire answer inside her own hands. Not burning. Pulling. A memory flickered behind her eyes. A woman's voice humming in darkness. Small bodies curled against her lap. Moonlit fingers drawing sickness from fur. Maren clutched her head as the image vanished. Darius stepped closer. "What was that?" "I do not know." "Do not lie to me." "I am not lying." His wolf growled through him, low and broken. The pups whimpered. Not from fear of him, but from his pain. The sound cut across his face like shame. Celestine reached toward his arm. "My king, come away. Your bond with them is unstable. If the Omega's magic is stirring their fever, it may also be stirring your wolf." Darius did not look at her. Maren heard one word above the rest. "Unstable?" Celestine's mouth tightened. Orvin answered before she could stop him. "Since the pups became ill, His Majesty's paternal wolf bond has been under strain." Darius turned on him. The healer fell silent. Maren stared at the Alpha King. So that was the wound beneath his empty eyes. The pups were not only sick. Their sickness was tearing his wolf apart. The smallest gold pup began to cough. Its little body folded against Maren's foot. Black foam touched its mouth. Darius slammed one hand against the silver bars. "Open the gate." Orvin panicked. "My king, if she infected them..." "Open it." No one moved. Celestine's voice sharpened under its softness. "If you enter, the court will say she drew you in." Darius's eyes flashed. "The court is not watching my child die." He reached for the latch himself. Silver burned his palm. Royal kennels were built to hold wolves, even kings. Maren saw the pain cross his face. She looked down at the gold pup. Its breathing had gone thin. Something inside her stopped asking permission. She knelt. The silver collar tightened, biting into her throat. Maren ignored it. She placed both hands near the pup's ribs, not touching at first, just close enough to feel the cold sickness crawling beneath its fur. Orvin shouted, "Do not touch it." Maren touched it. The pup convulsed. Darius roared her name, though he had never spoken it before. Moonfire burst from the pup's body and climbed Maren's arms in blue-white veins. The kennel filled with light. The other pups pressed against her, whining, glowing brighter, as if their tiny bodies were lending strength to the weakest one. Maren gasped. The sickness inside the gold pup was not natural. It had hooks, tiny black hooks buried near the heart, wrapped in ash and silver dust. Not fever, a curse, pretending to be illness. She closed her eyes. She did not know how she knew what to do. She only knew she could not let go. A lullaby rose in her throat. Old, omega soft, forbidden, the moonfire answered. Black ash pulled from the pup's mouth in a thin thread. It twisted in the air like smoke, resisting, searching for a place to hide. Maren caught it in her palm. Pain flashed through her hand. The silver collar cracked again. The gold pup sucked in a full breath, then another. Its eyes cleared from black to pale blue. Darius went still. The entire kennel yard went still with him. Maren opened her hand. In her palm lay a single black thorn of moon ash, wet with royal blood. Orvin staggered back. Celestine's face emptied, only for a heartbeat, but Darius saw it. Maren lifted the thorn through the silver bars. This was inside him, she said. The Alpha King looked at the thorn, then at his healer, then at Celestine. His voice dropped so low the frost on the kennel roof began to fall. Who put poison in my son? The question froze the kennel yard. Who put poison in my son? No one answered. The black thorn lay in Maren's palm, slick with royal blood and moon ash. It was small enough to hide beneath a fingernail, but every wolf in the courtyard stared at it as if it were a blade pressed against the kingdom's throat. The gold pup breathed against Maren's knee. Weak, alive. Blue-white moonfire still shimmered beneath its fur, softer now, no longer fighting so hard to keep death away. Alpha King Darius Veyr stood outside the bars with one burned hand still wrapped around the silver latch. Frost fell from the kennel roof in thin white sheets. His eyes were fixed on the thorn. Then they moved to royal healer Orvin. The healer looked suddenly old. My king, Orvin said. Moon ash can form naturally in corrupted blood. Maren's fingers closed around the thorn. No, it cannot. Orvin turned on her. You will be silent. The pups growled. All 7 of them. The sound was small, broken by fever. But it moved through the kennel like a verdict. Darius looked at Maren. Speak. Orvin stiffened. Celestine's expression remained calm, but her hands folded tighter over the white silk of her gown. Maren swallowed. The silver collar still pressed into her throat. Cracked, but not broken. Every word hurt. She spoke anyway. Moon. Ash fever burns through the blood. This thorn was placed near the heart. It was not born inside him. It was planted. The gold pup whined as if remembering. Darius's jaw clenched. When? Maren looked down at the pup's ribs. At the faint black stain where the thorn had hidden. Not tonight. Not all at once. The sickness was fed slowly. Orvin laughed once. Too sharply. A kennel maid now sees timelines in blood? Maren lifted her eyes. No. I see what you missed. The insult landed. Orvin stepped toward the bars, rage breaking through his courtly mask. You dangerous little gutter bred. Thaddeus moved. He did not shout. He did not draw steel. He simply turned his head. The healer stopped speaking as if a hand had closed around his lungs. Finish that sentence, Darius said softly. Orvin lowered his gaze. My king, forgive me. Celestine stepped in before the silence could deepen. Everyone is shaken. The Omega has done something strange, yes. But one pup breathing does not prove innocence. It may prove control. Maren stared at her. Celestine looked wounded now. Gracious. Afraid in all the right places. She touched him, Celestine continued. The thorn came out only after her magic entered him. How do we know she did not place it there first and remove it now to win sympathy? The guards shifted. The court always liked a circle. Accuse the powerless. Let them prove innocence with tools only power controlled. Darius looked back at Maren. For one painful breath, she saw doubt return. Not complete, but enough. It should not have hurt. It did. The gold pup dragged itself closer, pressing its nose against Maren's hand. The blue-white fire pulsed. Maren looked down, and the world narrowed. The pup's heartbeat tapped against her palm. Too fast. Too thin. But beneath it, another rhythm answered. One from the other pups. Then one from the old stones of the kennel. Then one from Maren's own blood. A lullaby without words. Her vision blurred. She saw hands that were not hers, mixing moon milk with crushed frost root. Omega women sitting in a circle under a low moon. Sick pups curled in their laps. A blade at the door. Fire. Screams. A woman hiding an infant beneath a gray blanket before the moon turned red. Maren yerked back. The pup cried out. Darius leaned closer to the bars. What did you see? Maren's breathing shook. I do not know. Celestine's voice cut in. How convenient. Maren looked at her. For the first time, fear inside her changed shape. Not gone. Sharper. You know this sickness, Maren said. Celestine's face did not move. Careful. No, Maren whispered. You knew what would happen when I touched him. Orvin snapped. She is delirious from forbidden magic. Then remove the collar, Darius said. Orvin went still. Celestine's gaze flashed. My king? Darius did not look away from the healer. If her magic is corrupt, the collar should contain it. If it is interfering with the pup's recovery, it should be removed. Which is it? Orvin's mouth opened. No answer came. Maren felt the trap shift. For the first time, not around her. Around them, Darius reached again for the silver latch. The metal burned his palm worse this time. Smoke rose from his skin, but he did not let go. The pups whimpered. Maren stood quickly. Stop. His eyes cut to hers. She touched the cracked collar at her throat. The kennel is made to punish wolves. If you force it open while your wolf is unstable, it will hurt you. Darius's face hardened. You are concerned for me? I am concerned for them. That was safer than the truth. The gold pup's ears twitched. Celestine watched them both, and something cold entered her eyes. Darius released the latch. His burned hand curled into a fist. Then how do we remove it? Maren looked at the collar. She did not know. The moonfire did. The pups gathered closer. All 7 pressed against her skirt, trembling. Their light rose together. Thin threads of blue-white fire winding up from their small bodies to the collar at Maren's throat. The silver cracked wider. Maren gasped as pain shot beneath her jaw. Darius stepped forward despite the bars. Maren. Her name sounded wrong in his mouth. Not because he said it badly, because he said it like it mattered. The collar split. It fell from her throat and hit the stone in 2 smoking pieces. The kennel lamps went out. Midnight dropped over the courtyard all at once. Then every sick pup lifted its head. Their eyes glowed blue-white. Not fever now. Recognition. A symbol appeared beneath Maren's bare feet, drawn in moonfire across the kennel floor. A crescent cradle surrounded by 7 tiny wolf paw marks. Orvin stumbled backward. No. Darius turned toward him. You recognize it. The healer shook his head. No, my king. Celestine's voice was barely a whisper. The extinct bloodline. Maren heard her. So did Darius. The Alpha King faced Celestine slowly. What bloodline? Celestine recovered too late. I only meant old superstition. The kennel floor answered. The moonfire flared brighter. On the black stone beneath Maren's feet, more symbols appeared. Names. Not written in ink. Written in light. Vale. 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 Again and again. Maren stared down, unable to breathe. The abandoned surname given to her by kitchen ledgers was not a servant name. It was a buried bloodline. Darius looked through the silver bars at her as if the world had just opened under his feet. Behind him, Orvin moved. A small motion. A hand slipping into his sleeve. Maren saw the glint of black. Another thorn. Darius, she said. No title. No, my king. Just his name. He turned in time. Orvin drove the moonash thorn toward his back. Darius caught the healer's wrist before it struck. The bones cracked. Orvin screamed. Celestine stepped back into the snow, face pale with fury. Maren gathered the pups behind her. Their moonfire rose around her like a shield. Darius looked at the thorn in Orvin's hand. Then at Celestine. His voice was no longer empty. It was deathly calm. Take them both to the throne hall. The throne hall of Verhold had judged queens, traitors, warlords, and wolves who forgot how to wear human skin. Tonight it judged an Omega with 7 sick pups at her feet. Maren Vale stood beneath the black moon banners, still in her torn gray servant dress, still barefoot from the Silver Kennel. Blue-white moonfire moved faintly beneath her skin. Not enough to look powerful, only enough to make every noble in the hall afraid of standing too close. The royal pups refused to leave her. That was the first problem. Handlers tried 3 times to carry them back to the nursery. 3 times the pups bared tiny teeth, whimpered, and crawled back to Maren's hem. The smallest gold pup pressed against her ankle as if her shadow were the safest place in the kingdom. That was the second problem, because everyone saw. Alpha King Darius Veyr sat on the obsidian throne above them, his burned hand wrapped in black cloth. His face calm in the way frozen lakes were calm before they broke. His gray eyes had no softness in them, but they were no longer empty. Royal healer Orvin knelt before the throne with both hands bound. The moonash thorn he had tried to drive into Darius's back lay on a silver plate between 2 guards. Lady Celestine Arlo stood beside him. Not bound. Not yet. That told Maren everything. Rank did not fall at the same speed for everyone. Celestine wore fear beautifully. Her white gown was damp with melted snow at the hem. Her pale hair loosened around her face, her eyes bright with offended innocence. "My king," she said, "I beg you to see what is happening. The Omega has turned your grief against you." Darius did not move. "Explain the thorn." Celestine looked at the silver plate as if the object pained her. Healer Orvin must answer for his own panic. Orvin jerked his head up. "Milady." Celestine's eyes cut to him. He went silent. Maren saw it. So did Darius. The Alpha King leaned forward slightly. "You were about to say something, healer." Orvin swallowed. His gaze darted toward Celestine, then toward the nobles gathered along the steps. "The pups were beyond saving," he said hoarsely. "The court needed stability." Maren's hands went cold. Darius's voice lowered. "Stability." Orvin trembled. "The noble houses fear a king with dying heirs." Lady Celestine's marriage alliance would have secured the succession. A murmur rolled through the hall. Celestine lifted one hand to her chest. "My king, he speaks from terror. I never ordered harm to your children." "Not children," Maren said. The hall turned. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. "You keep saying heirs. Succession. Bloodline. They are children." The gold pup looked up at her and whined. Darius's jaw tightened. Celestine's expression sharpened for one breath before turning sorrowful again. "That is touching," she said. "But maternal language from an Omega does not make her safe. The pups are sick." She touched them. They glow with forbidden fire. And now she claims an extinct bloodline conveniently appears beneath her feet. The nobles liked that. Maren felt their fear shift back toward her. Darius looked down at her. "What do you say?" Maren almost answered too fast. "I do not know. I am afraid. I never asked for this." But none of those words would survive this room. So she looked at the pups instead. The black pup still breathed unevenly. The silver-gray one shook with chills. The smallest gold pup was better, but not healed. The moon-ash hooks were still inside the others. "I say they are still dying," Maren said. "And everyone here is more interested in owning the blame than stopping the sickness." Silence struck. Then a wolf lord laughed under his breath. "Bold tongue for kennel blood." Darius's eyes moved to him. The laugh died. Celestine stepped forward. "If she is truly what the old symbols claim, then let her prove it under law." Maren's stomach tightened. There it was. A cage changing shape. Darius did not look away from Celestine. "What law?" "The Cradle Moon trial," Celestine said. "An Omega healer who claims royal pup bond must enter the nursery circle and draw sickness from all surviving pups before moonset. If she succeeds, the court may recognize her gift. If she fails," she let the sentence soften. The hall finished it for her. "If she fails, she dies." Darius's burned hand curled over the throne arm. That right was abolished. Celestine bowed her head. "Suspended, my king." "Not abolished. It exists for exactly this danger. Lowborn magic touching royal young." Maren looked at Orvin. He had gone pale. Not guilty pale. Afraid pale. The trial frightened him too. That meant Celestine was not only trying to test Maren, she was trying to force something open. Darius rose. The hall lowered its head. No. One word. The pups stilled. Celestine looked up sharply. My king? I will not throw an accused woman into a death rite to satisfy noble fear. For one impossible second, Maren could not breathe. He had not absolved her. He had not trusted her, but he had refused to feed her to law. Celestine's face hardened. Then the court will say she has already influenced you. Let it. The words moved through the hall like thunder. Maren stared at him. Celestine did too. Then the smallest gold pup left Maren's side. It limped across the black marble toward the throne. Darius froze. The pup reached the first step and tried to climb. Its legs failed. Maren moved instinctively, but stopped herself. This was not hers to take from him. Darius descended the throne steps. Slowly, as if approaching something sacred, he knelt before his son. The court inhaled. The gold pup placed one glowing paw on Darius's burned hand. Blue-white moonfire spread across the bandage. Darius sucked in a breath. The fire did not burn him. It healed the silver burn from the kennel latch. Then the pup turned its head toward Maren. Her, it whispered. The hall broke into chaos. Celestine stepped back, face white with fury now. The other 6 pups began to glow brighter, one by one, their small bodies trembling as the moon ash fever fought back. Maren felt it like hooks under her own ribs. She dropped to her knees. The pups cried out together. Darius rose. Maren. This time, when he said her name, the throne hall heard a command inside it. Not for her, for everyone else to stand back. Maren pressed one hand to the marble. The crescent cradle symbol appeared again beneath her palm, but this time it changed. 7 paw marks, 7 threads of sickness. One black source. The moonfire drew a line across the floor. Not to Orvin, not to Celestine, to the silver nursery doors behind the throne. Maren looked up, heart pounding. Darius followed the line with his eyes. Celestine whispered, No, too late. The nursery doors opened by themselves. Inside, beneath the royal cradle, something black pulsed under the floorboards. Not a thorn. Honest. Maren looked at Darius. The poison was never only in them, she said. The pups whimpered at her feet. It is under their beds. The royal nursery doors opened by themselves. No servant touched them. No guard pulled the handles. The silver-carved doors simply parted, slow and silent, as if the room beyond had been waiting for Maren Vale to look at it. The throne hall went still. Beyond the doors, the nursery glowed with pale moon lamps and soft white curtains. 7 small royal beds stood in a crescent around a cradle carved from black wolfwood. Silver charms hung from the ceiling. Blessed ribbons tied by noblewomen fluttered above each pillow. Bowls of healing water sat untouched beside embroidered blankets. It should have looked sacred. Instead, it smelled wrong. Bitter ash, burned milk, cold silver. Maren rose unsteadily from the marble. The 7 pups pressed around her legs, trembling. Their moonfire had dimmed again, pulled thin by whatever pulsed under the nursery floorboards. Darius descended from the throne. No one enters that room without my command. Celestine spoke quickly. My king, if there is corruption inside the nursery, the Omega should not be the first to touch it. Maren looked at her. For the first time, Celestine's fear was not perfectly dressed. It was raw, Darius noticed. Why? Celestine blinked. My king? Why should she not be the first to touch it? Because she is accused. She found the thorn. She may have placed it. The pups chose her. Because they are sick. Darius stepped closer to her. And the nursery floor opened because she is sick too? Celestine's mouth closed. A murmur moved through the nobles. Maren did not wait for permission. The pups were fading again. She walked toward the nursery. Darius caught her wrist before she passed him. Not hard. Enough to stop. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Maren looked down at his hand, then up at him. His face tightened. He released her immediately. I meant to warn you. Then warn me with words. The silence after that was sharp. A king corrected by an Omega in front of his court. Darius absorbed it, then nodded once. The nursery is protected by royal blood wards. If something below it is feeding on the pups, it may strike whatever tries to expose it. Maren looked into the moonlit room. Then it has already been striking them. She stepped inside. The moment her bare foot crossed the threshold, the nursery lamps went blue. The pups followed her. Handlers cried out, but Darius lifted one hand. No one stopped them. Maren knelt beside the smallest bed. The blankets smelled of lavender, healer's smoke, and ash. She pulled them back. Beneath the mattress, a silver charm had been sewn into the lining. At first glance it looked like protection. Then moonfire touched it. The charm curled like a dead spider. Maren's stomach turned. She lifted it carefully. A tiny black thorn was wrapped inside the charm's silver threads. The court gasped from beyond the doors. Darius's voice was very quiet. How many? Maren moved to the next bed. Another charm. Another thorn. Then another. 7 charms. 7 thorns hidden where sleeping pups would breathe them in night after night. Royal healer Orvin collapsed to his knees in the throne hall. No, he whispered. No, no, no. Darius looked at him. You recognize the work. Orvin shook his head too quickly. Maren stood over the black wolfwood cradle at the center of the room. The moonfire threads from all 7 beds led beneath it. She pushed the cradle aside. The floorboards below were carved with a circle of dark ash, almost invisible unless touched by moonlight. At its center lay a nest of black thorns braided with white hair, wolf milk, and scraps of royal blanket. A sickness nest. Maren had never seen one, but her blood knew the shape. The moment she looked at it, memory slammed through her. An Omega woman kneeling over a poisoned litter, hands glowing blue-white, a noble blade at her throat, a voice screaming, "Kill the pup, healers first. They will expose the royal poisons." Maren stumbled. Darius entered the nursery at once. The wards struck him. Silver light lashed across his chest, driving him to one knee. The pups cried out. Maren turned. Do not come closer. Darius clenched his jaw. This is my nursery. And it is hurting you. The words stopped him. Because they were true. Black veins of strain ran up his throat, not from poison, but from the broken paternal bond. Every pulse of sickness in the nest tore through him too. Celestine appeared at the doorway. She did not enter. Smart. My king, she said, voice shaking with anger beneath sorrow. Look at what she has done. She enters the nursery and suddenly hidden poisons appear. This is theater. Maren lifted one of the thorn charms. This was sewn into their beds. By whom? The question landed. Maren had no answer. Celestine turned to the court. She has worked in the kennels for years. She washes fever blankets. She carries bedding. She could have entered the nursery easily. That is a lie, Maren said. Celestine's eyes flashed. Is it? You were invisible enough to go anywhere. That is what servants are for. The words cut too close. Maren had been invisible. But invisibility had never been freedom. It had been a cage no one bothered to lock. Darius rose slowly despite the wards. Orvin. The healer looked up, trembling. Who approved the nursery charms? Orvin's lips parted. He looked toward Celestine. Her expression was calm again. Too calm. Darius saw. Answer. Orvin began to shake. The charms came from Lady Celestine's private chapel. The throne hall erupted. Celestine's face emptied. Then she laughed softly. A healer desperate to save himself will name anyone. Orvin turned on her suddenly, wild with fear. You said it would only weaken them. You said the king would marry you before any died. Celestine went still. The words could not be unsaid. Darius moved toward her. The nursery wards flared, stopping him at the threshold. Celestine stepped backward. My king, listen. No. His voice was no longer grief. It was judgment. But Maren was not looking at Celestine. The sickness nest had begun to move. The black thorns twisted, feeding on the chaos in the hall. The pups cried out as the fever surged through them again. Maren dropped to her knees beside the nest. Darius turned sharply. Maren, do not touch it. If I do not, it will finish what she started. The gold pup crawled beside her and pressed its head against her hand. Mother. The word came without sound this time. Inside her blood. Maren placed both palms over the sickness nest. Pain tore through her arms. Blue-white moonfire exploded across the nursery floor. racing through the 7 beds, the 7 pups, the 7 hidden thorns. The nest screamed. Celestine screamed with it. Every noble saw the same black smoke rise from the thorns and coil toward her chest. Maren looked up through the burning light. Lady Celestine Arlo bore a hidden mark beneath her white gown. Not Luna, not healing. A black crescent made of moon ash. Darius stared at it. Celestine clutched her chest. Too late. Maren's voice shook, but it carried. She was feeding on them. The pups glowed brighter around her. And now the poison wants to go home. The poison wanted to go home. Everyone in the royal nursery saw it. Black smoke twisted from the sickness nest beneath the cradle, rising in thin, furious ribbons. It did not scatter into the air. It reached toward Lady Celestine Arlo like a living thing recognizing its maker. Celestine stumbled back from the nursery doors. Her white gown glowed under the moon lamps, perfect and spotless except for the black crescent burning beneath the fabric at her chest. She clutched at it with both hands, but the mark only brightened. The court saw. The nobles saw. Alpha King Darius saw. For one breath, no one spoke. Then Celestine screamed, not in fear. In rage, you do not understand what you are seeing. Maren remained on her knees beside the open floorboards, both hands pressed over the sickness nest. Blue-white moonfire streamed from her palms into the black thorns, forcing poison out of the nursery beds and the royal pups' trembling bodies. The pain was brutal. The thorns were not only buried in wood and silver charms. They had roots, tiny black roots that had grown into the moonwards, into the blankets, into the scent of the room, into the bond between the pups and their father. Every time Maren pulled one free, Darius flinched. He hid it well. Not well enough. The smallest gold pup pressed against Maren's knee, glowing brighter than the others now. The fever had cleared from its eyes, but the little body shook as if trying to lend her strength. Darius stepped toward Celestine. The nursery wards flared again. But this time they did not strike him. They bent. Maren felt it happen. The wards had begun to understand who the poison belonged to. Celestine looked at the bending light and went pale. "My king," she said, voice breaking beautifully. "I did this for you." Darius stopped. The words hit the hall like a slap. Celestine took one step backward, tears bright in her eyes. "The council was preparing to challenge you. They said a king whose pups were weak could not hold the northern packs. They said your grief made your wolf unstable. They said if you did not take a Luna with a strong house behind her, Veyr would fracture before winter." Darius's voice was quiet. "So you poisoned my children. I weakened them," she snapped. "I never meant for them to die." The gold pup growled. Maren's moonfire surged. Celestine's mask cracked fully. "You think love keeps a throne? You think tenderness protects heirs? Noble houses do. Armies do. Marriage contracts do. I gave you a crisis only I could solve." Darius stared at her as if she had become something less understandable than a monster. "And Maren?" Celestine's gaze slid to the Omega kneeling in the nursery. She was convenient. The words were soft. That made them uglier. An abandoned Omega with no house, no parents, no pack witness. If the pups worsened, the court would blame her. If they survived under my care, I would become Luna. Either way, the kingdom would stabilize. Maren felt the words land. Convenient. That was what her life had always been to people like Celestine. A body with no one standing behind it. A name that could be erased without paperwork. The sickness nest pulsed beneath her hands. A black thorn drove into her palm. Maren gasped. Darius turned sharply. "Maren, do not come closer." Her voice shook. The thorn had found blood. The moment it pierced her skin, the poison changed direction. Not toward Celestine now. Toward Maren. Celestine saw and laughed once, breathless. There, the moon ash accepts her. Royal healer Orvin, still bound in the throne hall, lifted his head in horror. "No, my lady, that is not acceptance." Celestine ignored him. She raised her voice to the court. "You all see it. The poison enters her willingly. The pups were drawn to her because she shares its nature." Maren's vision blurred. The nursery tilted. Black ash crawled up her wrist beneath the moonfire, trying to turn her own healing gift into a confession. The pups cried out. All 7 pressed closer. but Maren forced her hands to stay on the nest. If she pulled away now, the poison would snap back into them. Darius moved toward her. The wards struck his chest, but he pushed through them. Silver light burned across his armor. Maren looked up, terrified. Stop. No. You will hurt yourself. His eyes were fixed on the black thorn in her palm. I have already hurt enough people by standing outside locked rooms. The words cut through her pain. He crossed the threshold. The nursery wards shattered around him like glass. The entire palace trembled. Darius dropped to one knee beside Maren, close but not touching. What do you need? No one had ever asked her that in a room full of power. Maren could barely breathe. The pups, she whispered. Keep them calm. If they panic, the poison digs deeper. Darius looked at the 7 trembling royal pups. For a moment, he looked lost. A king who knew armies. A father who did not know how to touch his own frightened children without breaking. Then he lowered his hand to the gold pup. Slowly, the pup pressed its face into his palm. Darius closed his eyes. A broken sound moved through his chest. Not a growl. Grief. The other pups gathered closer. One by one, Darius touched them. Not as heirs. Not as bloodline. As children. His wolf stirred beneath the room. No longer feral. Only wounded. The moonfire steadied. Maren felt it. The paternal bond was not broken. It had been buried under fear. She looked at the sickness nest. No more, she whispered. The black thorn in her palm drove deeper. Celestine's moonash mark flared. If she pulls it out, she dies. Orvin cried from the hall. The poison bond has chosen a vessel. Darius's head snapped up. Celestine smiled through tears. I told you. I only needed a crisis I could solve. Maren understood. The poison had a final lock. If she saved the pups completely, the moonash would bury itself in her blood and make her the permanent carrier. On Omega Veshel. A living confession. Darius turned toward Celestine. His voice was deadly. Undo it. I cannot. Then you die here. Celestine laughed bitterly. And prove I was right? That grief makes you feral? Darius went still. The trap was perfect. If he killed her, the court would fear him. If Maren stopped, the pups would die. If Maren continued, she would become the poison's home. The gold pup crawled into Maren's lap. Its small head pressed against her wrist, where the black thorn pulsed beneath the skin. Mother, it whispered again. Maren's eyes burned. I am not your mother. The pup looked up. Then why does your blood sing? The nursery went silent. Even Celestine stopped smiling. Maren's blood began to glow beneath the black ash. Not silver. Blue-white. Ancien. The crescent cradle symbol appeared under her knees, then spread across the nursery floor. 7 paw marks lit around it. Beneath them, older names surfaced in moonfire. Vale, Vale, Vale. Then another word. Pup-healer. Darius stared at the floor. Orvin began to shake. I thought they were all dead. Maren looked up slowly. The poison burned in her palm, but beneath it, something older opened. Not power rushing in. Memory waking. Women with omega hands. Children curled in moonlit fur. Lullabies that pulled death out by the root. Maren closed her fingers around the thorn. No, she whispered. The moonfire answered. I am not the vessel. She pulled the thorn from her own palm. Black ash screamed. The pups howled. Celestine staggered as if the thorn had been ripped from her chest. Maren lifted the poison before the court. I am the bloodline you failed to kill. The thorn shattered in blue-white flame. And every royal pup stood. Every royal pup stood. Not steadily. Not fully healed. But standing. 7 small bodies rose around Maren Vale in a ring of blue-white moonfire, their fever-damp fur glowing beneath the nursery lamps. The blackness in their eyes had burned away. Their breathing was still thin, their legs still trembling. But the death that had been crawling through them was gone. The throne hall beyond the nursery went silent. Then the court broke. Noble women gasped. Wolf lords stepped backward. Guards crossed themselves with old pack signs. Royal healer Orvin stared at the shattered thorn on the floor, as if he had watched a grave open and speak. Lady Celestine Arlo stood at the nursery doorway with one hand pressed over the black crescent mark hidden beneath her white gown. For the first time, she looked afraid of Maren. not disgusted. Afraid. Maren remained on her knees, one bleeding hand curled against her chest. The thorn had torn her palm open when she pulled it free, but the wound did not bleed red for long. Blue-white light gathered in the cut, closing around the pain like moonlit thread. Pup-healer. The word still burned on the nursery floor beneath her. Vale, Vale, Vale. A bloodline that was supposed to be dead. Darius knelt beside the pups, one hand resting on the smallest gold pup's back. The little creature leaned against him and breathed without coughing. The Alpha King looked at Maren then, not as an accused Omega, not as a servant, not even as a miracle, as a question that might destroy every answer his court had trusted. "What are you?" he asked. The words were not cruel, but Maren flinched anyway, because powerful people always asked what before they asked who. She looked down at her glowing hand. "I do not know." Celestine laughed softly. Too softly. "You do know." Everyone turned toward her. She straightened, gathering the shreds of her ruined grace. "You all saw the floor. Pup-healer, Vale, forbidden moonfire. The old blood did not die." Her voice sharpened. "It hid in an Omega servant and waited to touch royal children." The court stirred. Fear needed very little help. Darius rose. "Careful." Celestine's eyes flashed. "No, my king. You should be careful." The extinct pup-healer bloodline was not merely murdered. It was outlawed. Maren's breath stopped. Outlawed. Orvin lowered his head. Darius looked at him. "Speak." The healer trembled. After the Ashen Pup War, pup-healers were accused of binding royal litters to Omega blood instead of Alpha command. Some believed they could influence future kings before they learned to shift. "Lies," Maren whispered. Orvin did not look at her. "Perhaps. But the law remains in the sealed records." Celestine seized the opening. "There. She does not only heal them. They choose her. They crawl to her. They call her mother. If she wished, every royal pup in this kingdom could love her more than their own bloodline." The words hit Darius in the chest. Maren saw it. The wound beneath his grief. The fear that his children had chosen an abandoned Omega because he had failed them first. The gold pup growled at Celestine, but Maren gently touched its head. "No." The pup quieted. The court saw that too. Celestine smiled. "See?" Darius's jaw tightened. Maren slowly stood. Her legs shook, but she forced them to hold. "I did not ask them to come to me." "No," Celestine said. "You only sang to them." Maren froze. The lullaby. The forbidden tune that had risen from her throat without permission. Celestine's smile widened. "My private chapel had records too. Omega lullabies. Cradle moon rites. Little songs used to make royal pups answer low-born hands." Darius stepped toward her. "You knew what she was." Celestine's face hardened. "I suspected. When the pups began calming every time she entered the kennel, I searched the old records. And then you poisoned them." "I created a crisis," Celestine snapped. "Because if she revealed herself first, the court would fall at her feet. If I exposed her as dangerous, I could save you from her." Maren stared at her. "You call poisoning children saving him?" Celestine's eyes burned. "I call preventing another Omega cradle coup saving the throne." Darius's voice dropped. "There was no cradle coup." "No?" Celestine turned to the court. "Ask your grandmothers why pup-healer names were erased. Ask why every Vale woman was burned from the registry. Ask why noble houses feared litters that stopped obeying Alpha fathers and followed Omega healers into the moonwoods." Orvin whispered. "That was never proven." "History does not need proof when it leaves graves," Celestine said. The court murmured louder. Maren felt the room turning. Not fully, but enough. She had saved the pups, and still they were deciding whether salvation made her dangerous. Darius looked at the 7 pups gathered around Maren. His face was unreadable. Maren felt something in her chest sink. Here it came. The moment when a king would choose the safety of his throne over the Omega kneeling in his nursery. Then Darius turned toward the court. "Bring the sealed records." Celestine blinked. "My king?" "Bring them." Her expression changed. Fear again. Real fear. "No." The word left her too quickly. Darius's eyes narrowed. "What is in those records?" Celestine stepped back. Orvin whispered, "The moon cradle ledger." Maren looked at him. The old healer's face was gray. "It contains the last trials of the pup-healer bloodline," Darius said. "Where is it?" Orvin swallowed. "Beneath the old nursery chapel." Celestine moved then. Not toward the doors. Toward the cradle. Her hand flashed beneath her sleeve, drawing a thin black blade carved from moon ash bone. Darius lunged. But Celestine was closer to the pups. Maren moved on instinct. She stepped between the blade and the gold pup. The moon ash knife struck her side. Pain tore through her. The pup screamed. Darius caught Celestine by the wrist and threw her back so hard she hit the nursery wall, but Maren barely heard it. She looked down. The black blade had not gone deep. It had not meant to kill her. It had meant to mark her. Moon ash spread from the wound in a dark circle, forming a symbol on her skin. A false cradle brand. Orvin cried out. She branded her. Celestine laughed from the floor, blood at her mouth. Now the records will open. The nursery floor split beneath Maren. Blue-white fire poured upward from the crack, but beneath it came black shadows shaped like old accusations. Darius reached for her. This time, Maren caught his wrist first. "No." His eyes burned. "Maren, if the records are under the chapel, then I need to see them. You are wounded. I have been wounded since before you knew my name." The words struck him silent. Maren released him and stepped into the moonfire circle opening beneath the nursery floor. The 7 pups pressed against her legs, refusing to let her go alone. The gold pup looked up at Darius. "Come," it whispered. The Alpha King went still. Then he stepped into the circle beside Maren. The court gasped. Celestine's smile vanished. Blue-white fire swallowed the nursery. And beneath the palace, the moon cradle ledger opened its eyes. The moonfire did not carry Maren down. It remembered her downward. One moment she stood in the royal nursery with blood spreading beneath the moon ash brand on her side, 7 pups pressed against her legs and Alpha King Darius Veyr beside her. The next, the floor vanished, and the world became blue-white flame, old lullabies, and the sound of pages turning beneath stone. When the fire cleared, Maren stood in a chamber below the palace. Not a dungeon, a nursery, an ancient one. The walls were carved from black moonstone, veined with silver roots. Tiny beds lined the circular room, each one carved for wolf pups, each one empty. Above them hung broken mobiles made from crescent bones and old cradle charms. Dust covered everything except the center of the chamber, where a vast book lay open on a stone pedestal. The moon cradle ledger. It was not made of paper. Its pages were thin sheets of pale silver, and each page breathed as if something alive slept beneath the words. The 7 royal pups huddled close to Maren. Their moonfire glowed softly, answering the book. Darius stood beside her, sword drawn, face grim. "This chamber was sealed before my reign," he said. Maren looked at the empty beds. "But not before your bloodline." The words came before she understood them. The ledger heard. Its pages turned. A name appeared in blue-white fire. Vale. Then another. And another. Dozens. Hundreds. Women's names. Omega names. Pup-healers. Maren stepped closer, her wounded side burning. The moon ash brand Celestine had cut into her skin pulsed black, and the ledger answered with a low growl from within its pages. Darius reached toward her, then stopped, learning. "What do you see?" he asked. Maren swallowed. Names. The pages turned faster. Beside each Vale name appeared a litter mark. 7 paw prints. 5, 3, 9. Some glowed silver. Some had been crossed out in black ash. Maren touched one burned name. A vision rose. An Omega woman kneeling in a royal nursery centuries earlier. Her hands glowing blue-white as sick pups crawled into her lap. An Alpha King stood nearby, watching with fear instead of gratitude. Noble healers whispered behind him. Then the vision changed. The same woman dragged before a court, accused of stealing the pup's loyalty, accused of weakening Alpha Command, accused of making royal children love Omega blood more than their fathers. Maren pulled her hand back. The chamber felt suddenly too small. Darius's voice was rough. "What happened to her?" The ledger answered. The page burned black. "Executed under cradle treason law." The pups whimpered. Darius went still. Maren looked at him. Cradle treason? He did not answer quickly enough. She understood. You knew that law existed. I knew of it, he said. As an old disgrace. A dead law. Dead laws still leave bones. The words struck him. Good. The ledger turned again. Another vision. Another Vale woman. Another nursery. Another accusation. This time, royal pups fought against guards trying to take her away. The pups were beaten back with silver rods. The woman kept singing even when they chained her mouth. Maren's throat tightened. They were not controlling the pups, she whispered. They were comforting them. Darius's jaw clenched. The gold pup pressed its head into his boot. He looked down. The small creature did not fear him. That seemed to hurt him more than hatred would have. The ledger's pages suddenly stopped. A new image formed above the book. A king with Darius's eyes. Not him. An ancestor. He stood beside a burning kennel while noble healers threw cradle charms into the fire. Behind him, Omega women screamed. A child was passed through a crack in the wall, wrapped in a gray blanket. Maren's breath stopped. The blanket. She knew it. Not from memory. From dreams. Darius saw her face. Maren? The vision sharpened. A dying pup healer pressed the bundled infant into the arms of a kitchen servant. Hide her, the woman whispered. If the pups ever burn blue again, she must remember. The servant ran toward the palace gates. Maren stepped back from the ledger. No. The pages turned to the final entry. Maren Vale. No birth witness. No pack claim. Hidden under kitchen registry. Bloodline status. Surviving. The chamber tilted. Maren had spent her life believing she was abandoned because no one wanted her. But someone had hidden her because too many people would have wanted her dead. Darius read the entry. His face went pale. My house did this. Maren looked at him. Not cruelly. Not gently either. Yes. He closed his eyes for one breath. When he opened them, the Alpha King was gone from his face. Only the man remained. I cannot undo it. No. I cannot ask you to trust the bloodline that erased yours. No. The answer landed between them, clean and sharp. Then the ledger began to shake. The moon ash brand on Maren's side burned hotter. Black smoke rose from the wound and spilled onto the silver pages. Celestine's voice echoed through the chamber, though she was not there. The records are open. Let them judge what she is. The ledger's silver pages darkened. Darius lifted his sword. What is happening? Orvin's voice came faintly from above, panicked. The brand turns the ledger against her. It will read every accusation as truth unless the royal bloodline revokes the old law. Maren looked at Darius. The chamber trembled. The empty pup beds began to fill with shadows, little wolf shapes made from old fear. Old verdicts. Old lies. Pup thief. Cradle witch. Omega usurper. The words crawled across the walls. The 7 royal pups growled, trying to stand between Maren and the shadows. Darius stepped forward. The ledger flared black. A crown-shaped seal appeared above it. Royal blood required. Maren understood the trap. If Darius revoked the law, he would condemn his ancestors publicly. He would admit the throne had murdered healers and hidden the last surviving Omega child under its own roof. If he refused, the ledger would brand Maren as the monster Celestine needed her to be. Darius did not hesitate. He drew the edge of his sword across his palm. Blood fell onto the ledger. The chamber went silent. I, Darius Veyr, Alpha King of Veyr, revoke cradle treason law, he said. The black words on the walls screamed. He pressed his bleeding hand harder to the page. My throne names the Vale pup. Healer's innocent. The shadows shattered. The empty beds filled with blue-white light. Maren stared at him, unable to move. Darius turned to her. I cannot cleanse my bloodline by saying this once, he said. But I can begin by saying it where the dead can hear. The ledger glowed. One by one, the burned Vale names restored themselves. Then every page turned toward Maren. The 7 pups knelt. Darius lowered his head. The moon cradle ledger spoke in a voice made of lullabies and graves. Last daughter of the cradle blood. Will you heal what kings broke? Maren's throat tightened. She looked at Darius. He did not answer for her. He only stepped back. Choice. At last, Maren placed her wounded hand on the ledger. Yes, she whispered. But never again in silence. The chamber erupted in moonfire. Moonfire carried Maren Vale back to the throne hall. The 7 royal pups walked with her, not crawling now, walking. Their small bodies still trembled, but the black fever had burned out of their eyes. Blue-white light moved beneath their fur like quiet breath. The smallest gold pup stayed closest to Maren's bare feet, its head lifted, its gaze clear for the first time since the sickness began. Alpha King Darius Veyr returned beside her. Not ahead, not behind, beside. The court saw that first. Then it saw the blood on his palm, then the moonfire burning in Maren's wounded hand. Lady Celestine Arlo stood near the nursery doors, one hand pressed against the hidden crescent beneath her white gown. When she saw Maren alive, her face broke for one breath. Then she smiled. "You survived the ledger," she said. "How convenient." Maren looked at her. "The ledger survived you." The marble floor trembled. Blue-white fire opened like a book behind Maren. Silver pages rose from the light, turning in the air. Each page carried names restored from ash. Vale, Vale, Vale. Omega women erased from nursery records. Pup-healers executed under old law. Mothers called dangerous because royal children trusted their hands. A murmur moved through the nobles. Darius lifted his bleeding hand. Silence fell. "The cradle treason law is revoked," he said. "My throne names the Vale pup. Healer's innocent." A wolf lord stepped forward. "My king, no ancient law can be revoked without council witness." Darius looked at him. "It was written in royal blood. I revoked it in royal blood." The lord stepped back. Celestine's voice cut softly through the hall. "And what did the Omega make you confess beneath the palace?" Maren spoke before Darius could. He chose. The court turned to her. The ledger asked for royal blood. He gave it. It asked whether his throne would keep protecting a lie. He answered. "I did not make him." Celestine's smile thinned. "How noble." The Omega saves the pups, the king bleeds, and suddenly every dead woman in history becomes useful to her. The smallest gold pup growled. Maren touched its head. "No." The pup quieted. The court saw. Celestine pointed at the pup. "There, again. She commands royal blood." Darius's voice dropped. "She comforts frightened children." That silenced more people than anger would have. The silver pages stopped turning. One page floated toward Celestine. She stepped back. "No." The page opened. A vision burned above the hall. Celestine stood in her private chapel months earlier. Royal healer Orvin stood beside her. 7 silver charms lay on a white altar. Black thorns soaked in moon ash. A braid of Celestine's pale hair was woven through them. Her voice in the vision was calm. "Only weaken them. Not enough to kill. Enough for the king to need a Luna." Orvin whispered. "And the Omega?" Celestine glanced toward a gray servant dress hanging behind a screen. "She is already invisible. Let invisibility serve the throne." The vision vanished. The throne hall erupted. Celestine's beauty could not save her from what everyone had heard. Darius descended the steps. She backed away until the nursery doors stopped her. "My king," she said, voice finally raw. "I could have secured the northern houses. I could have given you armies, alliances, a Luna the court would obey. You poisoned my children. I gave you a reason to choose me." The hall went silent. There it was. No Vey, no Lau. Only ambition standing over 7 sick beds. Maren stepped closer. "And me?" Celestine looked at her with hatred stripped bare. "You were supposed to break." Maren felt the words open an old wound. The abandoned child at the palace gates. The kennel maid no one claimed. The Omega convenient enough to blame. She nodded once. "I did break." Celestine blinked. "I broke when they left me at the gates. I broke when the court taught me that Omega hands were useful only in filth. I broke every time a pup died in my arms, and the healers called it bad blood." The moonfire around her brightened. "And I healed anyway." The pups pressed closer. Darius looked at her with something quiet and painful in his eyes. Not pity. Recognition. Celestine laughed bitterly. "You cannot be Luna." The word struck the hall. Luna. Maren had not asked for that. She had asked only for the pups to live. Darius did not move toward her. He did not claim her before the court. He only said, "No one will decide that word for her tonight." Maren looked at him. that restraint mattered. The moon cradle ledger answered. Its silver pages folded into a small crown, shaped like a cradle and 7 wolf paws. It descended slowly toward Maren, glowing with blue-white fire. Maren stepped back. No. The crown stopped. The pups looked up at her. Darius stayed silent. Choice. At last. Maren looked from the crown to the restored veil names burning in the air. I will not wear anything built from dead Omega women unless their names are spoken first. The crown flared. One by one, the restored names rang through the throne hall like bells. Asha Vale, Maren Vale, Nera Vale, Solen Vale, Lyra Vale. More names followed. Dozens. Then hundreds. The servants knelt first. Then the guards. Then the wolves. The nobles resisted, but their beasts did not. At last, the throne hall bowed. Celestine remained standing alone. The moon ash crescent on her chest cracked. Black smoke poured from it, twisting toward the ledger. Darius drew his sword, but Maren lifted a hand. No. Let the truth take back what poison borrowed. The silver pages swallowed the smoke. Celestine collapsed to her knees, her hidden mark gone, her power stripped bare. The gold pup walked to her and stared. Celestine flinched from the child she had tried to kill. Darius turned to the court. Lady Celestine Arlo will stand trial for poisoning the royal pups, framing an Omega healer, and conspiring to seize the Luna seat through Moonash law. Celestine lifted her ruined face. You will regret choosing her. Darius looked at Maren, then back at Celestine. I have not chosen her. The hall stilled. She chose the pups. The truth. The dead. The living. If she ever chooses me, it will not be because this court corners her into gratitude. Maren could not look away from him. The cradle crown waited in the air. Maren reached out. Not to wear it, to hold it. Blue-white moonfire moved over her fingers. And far below the palace, every erased veil lullaby began to sing. By dawn, the throne hall of Veyr no longer belonged to the nobles. It belonged to the names. They burned in blue-white fire above the black marble, hundreds of Veyr women restored from ash and silence. Pup healers. Omega mothers. Kennel girls. Low-born hands that had once saved royal children and been punished for being loved by them. Maren Vale stood beneath those names with the cradle crown resting in her palms. Not on her head. Not yet. The 7 royal pups slept in a circle around her feet, finally quiet. The smallest gold pup lay against her ankle, breathing without pain. Every few breaths, blue-white moonfire shimmered under its fur, soft and peaceful now. The court watched them as if watching a new law being born. Lady Celestine Arlo knelt before the throne, stripped of her moonash mark. Without its stolen power, she looked smaller in her white gown. Less like a future Luna, and more like a woman who had mistaken ambition for destiny. Alpha King Darius Veyr stood beside Maren. Not too close. Not claiming. Beside. His wolf was quiet now, no longer tearing itself apart from grief. The broken paternal bond had settled into something deeper, steadier, because the pups were no longer dying behind locked nursery doors. Darius looked at Celestine. You poisoned royal children, he said. You framed an abandoned Omega. You used moon ash law to force a marriage and seize the Luna seat. Celestine lifted her chin. I tried to save your throne. No, Darius said. You tried to own it. The words struck harder than anger. Celestine's face tightened. The northern houses would have followed me. They would never follow her. Maren looked down at the cradle crown in her hands. Good. The court turned toward her. She raised her eyes. If they only follow power when it wears silk, then they were never loyal to the kingdom, only to the mirror it held up for them. A silence followed. Darius did not smile, but something in his face changed. Respect, perhaps, or the beginning of it. Royal healer Orvin, still bound near the steps, bowed his head. I knew the charms were wrong, he whispered. I told myself they were only weakening the pups. I told myself Lady Celestine would stabilize the court before anyone died. Maren looked at him. You heard them cry. He flinched. Yes. And you kept sewing thorns into their beds. His face crumpled. Yes. Maren felt no triumph. Only exhaustion. Justice sounded beautiful in stories. In life, It was usually a room full of people finally admitting they had chosen silence because it cost less than courage. Darius turned to the guards. "Take them." Celestine's eyes flashed. "You cannot cage me with common criminals." "No," Darius said. "You will stand before the families of every pup who died under Moon Ash care. You will hear the Vale names read. You will answer under the Moon Cradle ledger." The guards seized her. For one moment, Celestine looked at Maren. Hatred still lived there, but fear lived beside it now. "You think he will keep standing beside you?" she whispered. "Kings need heirs, alliances, noble blood. He will look at you one day and remember you were found at a gate." Maren held her gaze. "I remember that every day." Celestine faltered. Maren's voice stayed quiet. "That is why I will never mistake a palace door for mercy." The guards dragged Celestine away. Orvin followed, shaking. The throne hall remained silent until the doors shut behind them. Then Darius turned to Maren. The court leaned closer without moving. He seemed to feel it and hated it. Good. Some things should not be turned into ceremony before they became truth. "Maren," he said, low enough that only she and the nearest pups could hear. "I owe you more than apology. Yes, I let them put a collar on you. Yes, I let grief make me blind. Yes." He took the blow of each answer without defending himself. That mattered. It did not heal, but it mattered. "I will not ask you to become Luna because my pups chose you," he said. "I will not ask you to forgive me because my wolf trusts you. And I will not turn gratitude into a bond you never asked for." Maren's hands tightened around the cradle crown. "What will you ask?" Darius lowered his head. "How to build a kingdom where no Omega child is ever useful enough to be hidden and powerless enough to be blamed." The answer touched something in her chest she had not meant to leave unguarded. She looked at the pups, at the servants standing near the walls, some crying silently, at the nobles who could not decide whether to fear her or bow to her, then at the Vale name still burning overhead. "I will not be your court's convenient miracle," she said. "No. I will not mother royal children so noble women can praise me in public and despise me in private. No. I will not wear this crown until every Vale name is spoken in the nursery where they were erased." Darius bowed his head. "Then we begin there." The cradle crown glowed in Maren's palms, brighter but still waiting. Choice. Always choice. That afternoon, the royal nursery was open to the lower servants for the first time in Verhold's history. No noble liked it. Maren did not care. The 7 pups sat on clean blankets near the black wolfwood cradle. Darius stood at the doorway, not blocking it, only watching. The moon cradle ledger rested open in the center of the room. One by one, Maren read the Vale names aloud. Asha Vale, Maren Vale, Nera Vale, Solen Vale, Lyra Vale. More followed. Women who had sung sickness from royal blood. Women who had been called traitors for being trusted. Women who had died without graves because the court feared love it could not command. As each name was spoken, a blue-white paw mark appeared along the nursery wall. The pups watched silently. Darius listened to every name. He did not look away. When the final name faded into moonfire, the smallest gold pup rose and carried the cradle crown to Maren in its teeth. The room held its breath. Maren Kelt. Not to Darius. Not to the court. To the pups. To the dead. To the bloodline that had carried healing without thanks. Then she lifted the crown and placed it above her own head. It did not settle like a throne. It settled like a promise. Blue-white moonfire spread through the nursery, through the throne hall, through every Silver Kennel bar in Verhold. The old restraints cracked open one by one. No wolf howled in pain. This time they howled in recognition. Darius stepped beside her. "May I stand here?" he asked. Maren looked at him. The Alpha King asking an Omega for place. A small thing. A kingdom-breaking thing. "Yes," she said. "Beside me. Not over me." His eyes softened. "Beside you." The gold pup pressed between them, pleased with the arrangement. Weeks later, the Silver Kennel was changed. Not destroyed. Remembered. Its silver bars were melted into healing bowls for the royal nursery and the lower kennels. Its black stone floor was carved with every Vale name. No accused Omega would ever be locked there again without witness, trial, and voice. At midnight, Maren returned alone. The moonlight fell where she had once knelt in chains. She touched the floor. The old lullabies rose beneath her hand, no longer buried. Darius waited outside the open gate. He did not enter until she looked back and nodded. Then he came to stand beside her. The 7 pups followed, sleepy and bright-eyed, crowding around Maren's skirts. The gold pup yawned. "Mother?" it whispered. Maren closed her eyes. The word still hurt. The word still healed. She placed a hand on its head. "Not because you are royal," she said softly. "Because you are alive." Outside, the kingdom bells began to ring. Not for a wedding. Not for a trial. For the first Omega in Veyrd's history who was no longer hidden behind a servant name. Maren Vale looked through the open Silver Kennel gate at the moonlit palace beyond. She had entered it abandoned. She had survived it accused. She would change it remembered. And when the wolves of Veyr bowed at last, they did not bow to a convenient miracle. They bowed to the woman their children had chosen first.